Okay, so welcome everybody back to another episode. Now, today I'm really excited. We have got someone really fantastic for you all to meet. Now, his name is James Broomhead. Now, he's actually one of those people who, by his own admission, he really struggles to give himself a job title. You know, sometimes he has too many job titles, doing too many things at once. But his focus is really on architecture and product engineering that he uses to help customers solve problems. So, James, a huge welcome to you today.
Thank you very much, Farah. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. And look, you know, for anyone, I was lucky enough, I got to see you on stage at Knowledge presenting. So that was amazing. But for anybody who didn't get a chance to see you on stage or, you know, doesn't know too much about your background, it would just be nice in your own words just to kind of give a brief history about, you know, your kind of journey in ServiceNow and how you've got to the position that you are in today.
Yeah, certainly. I started my journey, I guess it was around 2007. I worked for a bank, Morgan Stanley, and they were having a look at how they could reimagine at this point, right? I'll call it a ticketing system. What were they going to do with their ITSM tooling? And they were using HP Service Manager. And we got the opportunity to talk to this innovative, new company that we all know and love as ServiceNow. But I got involved because I was actually an incident manager at the time. I was a major incident manager, and I got involved in fixing stuff. And I'd always get frustrated around kind of lack of information. I didn't know what servers did, who used them. So I was always writing bits of code to go and ask systems questions to help me do my job. So I actually got invited in to quiz ServiceNow about some of their functionality and what I thought as a relatively junior person as to how it might be able to help us. And just not having been involved in any of that, I could see very easily that this platform was totally different from what had gone before. So we went through the RFP process, made the decision to purchase ServiceNow. That must have been around kind of 2008. And from there, I got the opportunity to be part of the program that deployed it, starting off effectively as a developer, and then moving into owning kind of the CMDB stream and the reporting stream kind of through the life cycle. But one of the things I think I'm grateful for is that I'd experienced some of the processes before I got into using the tool. So I'd done change approval boards. I'd been a problem manager. So I had some kind of hands-on experience of, if you like, of being the human on the keyboard and working out kind of when does the tool set or the technology help you and when does it kind of get in the way. So I did that. I must have been for about 7 years. And then I decided that, I needed a change. I needed a new challenge, which I think is part of kind of me. And, so I decided to move to the, partner side, a small startup. I worked there for, probably 4 or 5 years and then got acquired into, DXC. So one of the big global, ServiceNow partners. I really enjoyed that. I've always flip-flopped between big companies and small companies in my career ever since I started working. I've moved around a bit. So I like the mix of kind of small companies with 40 people and then big companies with over 100,000. They're very different, but I always like having a bit of that. So I did that for kind of 4.5 years and made sure that the integration of that practice had gone well. And then most recently, I've started a new journey back at a small company called Cality, and really looking, I guess, at maybe that next stage of ServiceNow. What's it going to do with the introduction of AI? So yeah, just looking forward to kind of how the ServiceNow, I guess, ecosystem changes, but how customers are going to change their use of the platform.
That's amazing. And you know what? I think it's really interesting because obviously you were working for, a bank, and then you went and joined a startup, kind of a small company. Like, what was it about doing that? Because some people might think, oh, that's quite risky in your career to do that. Like, what was it like that kind of inspired you to kind of go, actually, you know what, this could be really good?
Yeah, I think it was a bit risky. I'm a very risk averse person in general, and I think I do struggle to make that jump. But I think I've learned having made a few of them that actually, um, what I do know is I know I need a change. I know I've settled a bit, and I'm not necessarily kind of in enjoying things. So the bit that kind of made me jump, or I always think helps me with that transition, is getting to meet the people that I'll be working with, and I think that's always helped me make that final jump. I kind of imagine myself thinking, actually, if I was to work with this person, you know, long days in one place, would I be a kind of happy person? Do I see eye to eye with them? And it brings me all the way back to one of my first interviews, actually, that I had with a big SI who I won't name. And the interview was like, would you enjoy working in a porter cabin on the M3 with no windows? And at the time, of course, you say, yeah, I'd love that. It'd be a challenge. And at the end of the call, I was just like, no, why would I do that? That sounds like a terrible idea. So I've followed that through, and I always think that if I enjoy working with the people, and I think those people have got vision and share my values, I'll make the jump, because the risk averse person in me is always like, well, I could always change my mind and go back. In most places, you probably know this. As long as you've stayed there for 12 months, there's nothing, no harm is done, if you like. So you can always make another change if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's like people make a company, as much as, company will have a product or anything else, it really is the people that will drive it. And I suppose that, when I get a lot of people that say to me, it's, the culture is really important. And I say, why? And then when you break it down, it really does come down to, look, I'm going to be spending all day with these people. I need to make sure it's people that are like-minded and people that I can bounce ideas off. And I know that I'm progressing as well. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I think it's great as well because, I think we all are risk adverse. No one really wants to kind of, take that, jump and then you don't know where you're landing, right? You always want to make sure that you're going to land on your feet.
Yeah,
So I
I
think
got
it's
comfy
great
in
that,
COVID. I enjoy my seat at home. I didn't used to like leaving the house, and then I still have it actually. Every time I go into London and I see clients, I get apprehensive as I get on the train, and then as soon as I'm there, I love it and enjoy it, and I think, oh, I
yeah.
should do this kind of more often. So yeah, creatures of habit, humans.
Definitely. And how did you like get that? Because you were on stage at Knowledge and you were presenting in front of quite a few people. And I was there and I watched you and you were so confident and so brilliant. And I was looking at you amazed, thinking, my God, how is he just remembering all of this? Because it was about half an hour that you were talking. Like, how did you get that confidence to kind of be up on stage and present in front of all these people?
Um, I guess practice. So for anyone who I think maybe gets nervous and struggles, I'll stick my hand up and say I'm one of those people at school, and in school plays or whatever. I always used to be backstage, right behind the curtain. You couldn't see me. The good news is, I guess over time it's possible to kind of learn those skills. I did some good training courses. It was horrible actually. They filmed you do a presentation, and then you watch it back over and over again, and you see all of your mannerisms, like you cross your arms or you got your hands in your pockets, and then they kind of unpick it, and you become more aware of who you are. And then just kind of practice, I guess, opportunities through kind of pre-sales roles, of going to talk to customers, standing up at some of the Now events, be them kind of Now forums or some of the snugs. And just, I think, evolving. And I think as you realize that you get confident in the subject, actually everything else just kind of flows. It doesn't become standing up and talking to people. It's just like you're having a conversation, which I think is how I get the confidence to do it. I'm not making things up, right? I know what's being said, and from that point of view, I enjoy it. And I think the last bit is just trying to, I guess, respect the fact that people have come to listen to you, and trying to make sure that you give them something to take away from their time. So thinking that through when you build the presentation and get the points across is important.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And you know what, honestly, on stage, you were so engaging. And, it was like, it was really interesting what you were talking about. And even for me, as a non-technical person, I understood the message you were trying to get across. And I thought, wow, this is really good. So yeah, I think you did an amazing job. So yeah, so it's really good. So for anyone that didn't get to see it, I don't know if there's anyone was filming it or anything, but it's definitely worth watching, which is great. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, what I was going to say, in terms of like, it's quite interesting, like when we talk about confidence and, particularly in like careers. And you mentioned about, you did a training course where they filmed you doing a presentation and telling you, okay, don't wave your hands, or, where was that? Like, is that something that's accessible for everyone, or is that something you did privately?
So it's one of the things that was accessible when I worked at a big company. So they'd bring someone in and they'd kind of coach you. But actually, I
Oh,
think
wow.
you could do it if you film yourself, at your desk talking, and just watch yourself. You'll see all the things that you do, and a lot of the coaching actually that PowerPoint has this capability to record you and tell you if you're using filler words like or yes. These days, there's so many tools that you can use. I think it's just carving out the time, and if you like having the confidence to actually watch yourself and hear yourself talk, because I don't like the sound of my own voice very much. The other thing that they did say, which I think maybe is part of it, is if you talk better with your hands in your pockets, it's better to have your hands in your pockets and feel, if you're like comfortable, that that's how you perform best. Don't try and be the kind of consummate person who stands up and talks. Work with who you are and how you do it. And having been at Knowledge, actually, I think it was fascinating to watch all the people who stood up and talked. I'm not sure I can make the jump up to 20,000 people. I think that's next level. But
Yeah.
watch those people and see how they do it, and see what approaches they take. Because I think it was the keynote on day 2. Janine from JP Morgan was just, her energy was incredible.
Yeah.
So I think you just pick up kind of tips and tricks as you watch people, and then incorporate it into your own kind of repertoire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was there, I watched that keynote, and I just thought she was amazing as well. And to be honest with you, everybody that came on that stage for all the keynotes, I just thought, wow, and watching the demos as well, which was brilliant. So yeah, it was really, really good. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like in your career, do you feel that you've had some good like mentors, like good guidance, like people that have really believed in you and supported you and given you that confidence to kind of go all the way kind of to the top?
Yeah. So when I started, my first mentor was kind of thrust upon me, and I should thank the individual that did that, because I was one of these people that's like, I can do a job. I'm technical. I know what's going on, and I don't think I really understood the benefits of having it. So I got a mentor in a totally different part of the business. They were focused around kind of finance and operations, but they taught me lots of things that I'd never thought about, like how to read a situation, how to read a room of people when you've got, conflict, challenges, people disagreeing. I learned skills about how to understand that and actually get the outcome I wanted from a room full of people, a good non-technical skill. So I'd encourage anyone who is looking for a mentor to go and find somebody that's maybe a little bit left field, a bit out of their comfort zone, and just talk, because they learn things from you as well. In that example, I explained, how technology serves the business. So quite often they can be kind of two-way relationships. And then I guess as I learned from that, I kind of worked on the basis of just informal mentors. I'd have a conversation with someone. I'd ask them some questions. I kind of asked for advice and help. And then through that, you just get to, have more and more conversations. And I've always tried to make sure I've got maybe 2 or 3 people that I can reach out to and say, actually, I'd like to bounce an idea off you. What do you think about this? And I think most people, I guess, from my introduction, architecture, I'm a technical person. So a lot of my kind of mentors or the people that I talk to tend to be kind of in sales, maybe on the CEO side have sold companies, looking at, what they do that I just don't think about. And I like to understand how they work so that I've got a better view of, how I can be successful at customers. Because if I'm working at a customer and I'm talking to a platform owner, it's really nice if I've actually got a relationship with another platform owner, because I can ask questions and say, actually, why are they so confused about this? Or, and it just helps. So I'd encourage anyone to, just strike up a conversation, send somebody a message and ask, look, I need a bit of help on this. Sometimes I find do you want to be my mentor is a bit intimidating. So starting with just the basics of, I'd like to understand a bit more about this. Can we have a coffee, or can you spare 10 minutes? Is the best way of doing it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. The fact that you don't just need to have one mentor, and it doesn't need to be official, right? It can be like a collection of people, group of people that you've met. And you know what? If you go to like the forums, if you go to snug groups, if you go to like knowledge, you meet people on a social level, which is sometimes really good, because like exactly what you said, they become like your friend. So then you can reach out to them. I mean, I'm always reaching out to people and I'm like, oh, I just got given this job spec by HR. What does this actually mean? Like, what do they really want? So it's really good to kind of just be able to kind of talk to someone who is technical and go, actually, forget that.
Yeah.
That's not what they want. This is what they want. And so many times that has helped me, be better at recruitment. It's having that knowledge, and yeah, I think that's brilliant. Because you're right, it is really intimidating for someone who's maybe like new to kind of go, oh, I need someone who's going to help me, who can I ask? Well, actually, if you just make friends with a collection of people that can help you, I think that would be amazing. So and you know what, it's great as well, because you get like different views as well, I guess. Like has there ever been like conflict of views, like where someone said, actually try it this way, James, and then someone else has said, do it this way? Like, has that ever happened? Or
always you get 2 different people, 2 different opinions, 2 ways of doing something. It gets really complicated when you have to talk to them both at the same time and convince them that you've listened to both of them and deliver it. But I think that's how if you understand, I guess, why those people have asked for a different approach, you stand a much better chance of delivering it. I think if you do what's asked and you deliver 2 different messages, it'll just come across as confused. But if you can deconstruct it into why they've asked, then actually chances are there's a solution that'll work. But it's, I guess, how that's part of it. And the other bit, which I guess maybe is less kind of mentorship, but kind of role models. When I was a few years ago, I've always liked to pick people that I think, would I like to be like them in 10, 15, 20 years time? And you see those people in organizations, you meet them and think, God, it'd be great if I could achieve that. And I always find that it's interesting who I pick or kind of who I gravitate towards, because I don't necessarily see them as me. The one thing that I've always kind of picked out in individuals actually is their kind of calmness under pressure, never get flustered. I find people that get flustered. There's something going on there that I feel uneasy about when I'm kind of working for them, if you like. And so I found those people, and the other bit I think is actually kind of the leadership role, the CEO of the company that you work for. I'd say probably I'll go a bit on and say I was lucky enough to work for a bank in the financial crisis of 2008, which sounds like a strange thing to say, but you learn a lot when, things are hard. And Morgan Stanley brought in a new CEO in the guise of James Gorman, and he wasn't a banker. And everyone was like, why are you bringing in someone to run a bank who isn't a banker? No one's ever done that before. He was a management consultant. But it was interesting seeing, how he interacted with the board, with the employees. And he was always very calm, very level-headed, and remarkably transparent, right? He would talk about what was on his mind every day, what was keeping him up at night. And it was kind of a human level interaction. You didn't feel like he was a CEO on a podium. He was very humble about all the things he did. And I think it took me a little while to realize it. I'm probably 10, 12 years later now. And I sit there and realize the power of what, he's done. He's just moved on. I think he's retired. But I think I realized that as I've gone through a number of other companies where that leadership is missing, I think it has an impact on kind of you as an individual and the opportunities it creates. So having a role model in a CEO that you can look to, it doesn't have to be in the company you work for. I mean, I think it's great if you work for a CEO that's, that it excites you and makes the work enthusiastic. But keeping an eye on that, I think, is useful and really helps career growth.
Definitely, I totally agree. And like even for me personally, I always think work for a CEO or for someone who inspires you, who makes you excited to go into work every day, because that is going to fuel passion. It's like you've really got to love what you do, and a lot of it comes from the top, as in like how they kind of are with you. And I think that's amazing what you said about the person that kind of took over, and they weren't a banker, and it was, I think that's, those kind of traits, especially at that time. Like, I remember that time, and it was hard, everything kind of, shut down basically.
Yeah.
It was really hard. And it was just one of those kind of periods where you just had to like get through it. And, even for us as recruiters, working for agencies, everything closed, everything shut overnight. And it was just like, right, you have to do what you have to do to make sure you come out of this on the other end. And but it took a few years, but it happened. Everyone came back, and obviously then things bounced back. So yeah, I think if you had leaders that kind of really panicked, it could have really sunk the ship. So
well, exactly. If they, and as you say, a difficult time, but if they become pressured and stressed by the environment that you're in, you become pressured and stressed. And that doesn't help. But if you're calm and you say, look, we're going over here, it's not going to be plain sailing. And I look at ServiceNow implementation, right? It's nowhere near as big as the financial crash, but they're never plain sailing. But if you say, look, we've got 3 months. I know I'm going over here. I've got 2 things that I need to focus on. Actually, you'll get to a good outcome. If you don't acknowledge those challenges, that's where you get into some more of the difficulties.
Definitely. Just talking about ServiceNow, it's rapidly evolving. There's always new sort of features coming out. How do you personally keep up to date? What's your kind of personal strategy to make sure that you're always, up to date with what's happening?
Yeah. So, I think a level of honesty, I think it's hard, right? It moves very fast. And it's very difficult these days to be on top of everything. So I think on one hand, there's all the content out there in Now Create. there's lots of people that make some amazing content in terms of the MVPs on YouTube and everything else. What I try and find is that I keep my content relevant, if you like, to the questions that I'm being asked every day, or maybe a bit more subtly, the questions I think I'm going to get asked. So I try and tune all the things I'm reading about and absorbing all the content around what I think is going to happen. So customers will ask me questions, and I get an opportunity to go, right, how do I work this out? And I think I'm lucky enough that in the company I work for, I can use people to help me understand that. I can set them challenges, and then they get the opportunity of sharing some of that content kind of online. But there is a little bit of, I think, filtering what's useful. You could see that, say, the AI hype of last year was coming. You can begin to see, out of the back of knowledge, people will be talking about, what do I do about the fact that they've released this new knowledge graph? What does that mean for me? So you can predict a little bit of that, and starting to do some research, both on the platform, but also on a broader technology landscape. So one of the things I do, which seems a bit odd, is I not only research what ServiceNow's up to, but it's always useful to have a look at what other people have been doing. And I think virtual agents and chatbots is a great example, because it took ServiceNow a little while to get to a strong feature set, and there were competitors who were better. So understanding what they do means you can have a more balanced kind of view of the capabilities you need. And then that helps with conversations with ServiceNow, as you can point out gaps, and the customers kind of help with that. But it is a never ending story in a really good way. But I definitely find that I think I'm having to pick and choose which bits of the platform I focus on. There's definitely, I think if I said I knew maybe a half to 2/3, that's probably fair. I've definitely got some gaps, and I think maybe that's just being realistic about how much you can absorb, as well as doing kind of a day job.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. Like, it really, because it can be really overwhelming, to kind of say, "Oh, I know the entire platform." Like, I don't think anybody really, really, truly does know that. And I think it's really interesting where you say, focus on what your customer will potentially ask questions about, because then you're going to be confident in how you talk with them as well. Because if you really focus in on what they're looking for and their problems and what you're working on, and I love the fact that you do go outside of ServiceNow. You look at the competitors and what are they doing that's better, and and taking that back to ServiceNow to improve it. I think that's brilliant. It's a really different as well, which I don't think many people do that approach. So I think that's fantastic that you kind of like, it's like you're focused, but then you're still looking from a broader perspective as well, which I think really probably helps a lot.
Yeah, I think it's kind of come from one of those things. If you were to ask me, what would I tell a younger version of me, or someone who is looking to start out kind of in the ServiceNow space, it's definitely having that kind of broad background. Don't focus on a single product, if you like. Understand a little bit more about what the technology is doing, what that means to the business, and have a look at the landscape and the competition, because that makes you a broad and a rounded individual. Yes, the certifications are really important, but I value, I guess, going back to my introduction, the fact that I run all the processes. Now I can implement a tool, and I think for anyone that's starting in the ecosystem, that's a great skill to have. If you can get hands-on, either watching a process or doing a process, it's really valuable. And don't underestimate, I guess, your ability to mimic, I guess, how companies use IT, right? Everyone's got a laptop in front of them. you know what to do if it breaks, right? Yes, it's slightly different in an enterprise, but have a think through that. Challenge yourself to build a network, make your Wi-Fi at home better. All of those things where you get some technical hands-on experience, you can use and transition into your work in the ServiceNow ecosystem as a developer, as a BA, because you get those examples and those stories that help customers shape their requirements, and that's something I really value in kind of the teams I work with. And I think as we progress, the people that were successful, I guess, on the platform in the early days, where you had to write lots of code and create lots of capabilities that were missing, it's evolving. It's a different set of skills, and I guess that's my part of the reason I've always been a bit broader and had a look outside of the platform.
It's amazing. That's fantastic. So, like, you're really humble, you're amazing at what you do, but you're really humble as well at the same time. How do you balance kind of being ambitious, but staying quite grounded at the same time? Like, any tips that you can give anyone?
Yeah. So I think I've always, I guess, really valued a team. It's always been about that group of people, and I think it comes from the early days. I worked in a shift pattern when I was doing major incident management, and you form this really close bond with the other people on shift. You trust what they do, and you trust that the early shift is going to come in on time, and then the late shift will come in so you can go home, and you build like a close relationship. And I think I've always, I enjoy that. And I think when I've, worked on implementations and built those teams up, it's all about that success as a team. If someone's struggling, help them. If someone's doing a great job, give them the opportunity to promote themselves and do a bit more. So I think for me, that's probably what, I kind of focus on. If the team is successful, then I'm successful. I think with the kind of balancing that with the kind of ambition, I think it's all about just making that step, being brave and saying, you know what, I'll put my hand up and I'll do something that I haven't done before. For me, that's, I think, where the kind of, if you can do that, I think the ambition just kind of builds. And I think if you sit back and go, I'm not comfortable, maybe I need some more training, I think you've just got to grab the opportunity in front of you. It may not appear, and to be honest, lots of my opportunities have never been obvious. Like, someone said, do you want to go and help this customer over here? And I'm like, that's not really my strength. And everyone's like, give it a go. And I've enjoyed doing that. I learn a lot. And I think that kind of helps.
That's amazing. So wonderful. Look, so my final question, if you could go back in a time machine and talk to your 21-year-old self, what would you say to him?
Oh my goodness. I think one of the things I remember when I started, I'd start and I think, I don't know anything. I'd learn a few things for 3 months or 6 months. And I think, right, I've got this. Right, I can do it. Why is everyone else? I mean, what's going on around me? Like, why have all these people above me got, other jobs or get paid more? And I didn't really understand it. And I think I got a bit frustrated by it. And what I think I realized was that while I knew a lot of technical things, I did lack experience. And what I think I'd tell my younger self is, yes, learn everything and make sure you're a capable individual. But I think trying to be as efficient as you can at getting those experiences is really, really important, because it's not about, creating a hierarchy of systems where after 3 years or 5 years or 6 years, you get to move up and get another job. It's about, are you rounded enough to make that jump? And I think you as an individual know when you've learned everything that you're going to learn from a particular role or opportunity. Look for the next experience, if you like. And if you do that, then I think you'll find that your desire to kind of grow and get promoted becomes a bit easier, because you can get more experiences in a faster amount of time. If you stay doing one job for 5-10 years, you'll be very good at that job, but the experiences you will have seen are maybe slightly more kind of narrow. And it's something I try and encourage, I guess, in the ServiceNow space, asking people about, look, are you a developer? Do you want to try your hand at business analysis? Or quite often have a go at pre-sales. Gives you a great insight into, how that side of the business works. You don't have to do it for ages, but if you did it for 6 months, you'd learn some things you could take back into the other part of the business. So I think that's my lesson to myself from a few years ago. I think I would have been a happier person if I'd have known that and kind of understood it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's amazing. Well, look, James, I just want to say an absolutely huge thank you to you for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. And I hope everyone's managed to take away some great nuggets of information and advice from here. So huge thank you to you, James.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me. And I hope everyone who listened enjoyed it. And if you've got any more questions or want to reach out, then happy to get in touch.
Fantastic. Thank you so much then. Thanks, James.
Right. Thanks, Brian.